Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Stories That Inspire Us. My name is Janis, your host, and I have a question for everyone. Do you suffer from cravings? I know I do, and we are going to have an amazing conversation today with the founder of the Craving Crusher Method. I am so excited to welcome to the Stories That Inspire Us podcast my amazing guest, Lety Algeri. She is not only a holistic health coach, she's also, as I said, the founder of the Craving Crusher Method. Welcome, Lety. I'm so excited to get your podcast up and running here.
Well, I'm so excited to be here and hopefully share a little bit of my story that inspires your audience, right? And that's what we want to do, is help people.
Absolutely. And let's start out with, I think, with cravings. And then I want to get into your story behind the story, because I think it's always the story behind the story that really captures and inspires people to make that change. I also feel that when we have cravings, that's our body's like notification, if you will, sending us messages that we are either lacking in our micronutrients or our nutrients. What can you tell us about cravings?
Well, I love that you said that, because I always say your body's talking to you. Do you speak body language, right? Do you understand what your body's saying? And often our body may be saying something like, I'm thirsty, and you hear, oh, you want potato chips. That's what you need, right? Yeah, we're all guilty, right? Or even like just feeling your body saying, go to sleep. Like you need to go to bed and all you want is chocolate, right? So that fast energy. And so cravings tend to control us if we don't understand where they're coming from. And they definitely could be, like you said, a lack of micro or macronutrients, but a lot of it could be emotional too. And so it's not always physical, but it is an emotional piece. And we look for food to comfort us from whatever emotion is missing in our lives. So there's definitely a few pieces to cravings, and that's where it gets a little complex sometimes.
It certainly is. And, I will start out by saying you said two very magic words there for me. And
Okay.
I've talked about this: potato chips.
I love it.
And that, as everyone knows, I've talked about it at some point or another on all my 3 podcasts. I cannot be trusted around a bag of potato chips. In fact, I was in the grocery store this morning, just ran in to pick up a few things, and I felt that magnet when I walked by the potato chip aisle. I did walk down the aisle, and as my eyes just went, potato chips. And I'm like, no. And I said out loud, nope, step away from the chips. And I didn't realize somebody was behind me, but they got a good laugh. So whatever.
So no chips, you didn't buy them.
No chips.
So proud of you. So proud of you. So you and I can explore where that craving is coming from at one point for sure and get to the bottom of it. But it's real, listen, you walked away from it, but many, many times we can't. And so working in the health field, I find that women come to me and they're like, I'm on this diet and I'm counting all my calories and everything is perfect. And I say, well, until we get to the bottom of your cravings, your emotional eating, it doesn't matter what diet you're on, because those cravings are going to end up sabotaging you.
Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
Such an important remark. And if we hear some background noise, I do apologize. There's a lot of machinery moving around the property. But anyways, that is really key there. It doesn't, like, we are on a diet every day, and it doesn't matter what kind of a diet you are on. If you are not getting to the root of why you are doing what you're doing. And let's face it, I talk about, like I said, potato chips all the time. I know why I'm doing it. I know that if I eat a bag of chips, I'm going to get sick. But it's the normalization that we've created. It's our perception. And if we don't figure out what is going on, and it really can be in a very emotional part, or, people, I think, go into something like a diet with, okay, I'm going to lose like all this weight. I'm going to get ready for you know, the dysfunction that I have. I think if we looked at the cravings and do it and really be honest with ourselves, we can see progress. I can step away from them, but there are times when I feel that I can't. So there.
So there, and you know what? And I think that you're so right. There's a few things you said that I'm like dying to jump in, right? So first, just to piggyback off that, one of the most common phrase I hear in my practice is, I was good all day and then. I was good all day. I worked out in the morning. I planned my breakfast. I had a salad for lunch. I was so good. And then the potato chips, the chocolate, the whatever, right? Fill in your food, whatever that is for you, your vice. And so then what happens? Then we tend to say, oh, I sabotaged. I suck. I can't do this. I'm not meant to be on a diet. I can't. And we are just reinforcing a negative belief, making us self-sabotage ourselves over and over and over again. Because what we're doing is we're being trained that if we count our calories and we're on this diet, if you don't lose weight, it's your fault and you made a mistake. As opposed to really understanding like what is happening and why, and what is your body saying, and getting to the root of that issue. And that's why I focus on cravings, because that to me is more valuable and more powerful than any diet you could be on.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as a health coach myself, you know, you used the word then, and I called it and then some, because if I was going to be on a diet, then this is way back when, if I was going to put myself on a diet, I already started the negativeness without realizing it. When I kind of in my 40s, when I was as heavy as I used to weigh more than my commercial grade kickboxing bag, which is I'll say that my commercial kickboxing bag is 272 pounds. I was weighed more than that.
Wow.
But until I looked at that realistically, looked honestly at my behavior patterns.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, you obviously made huge shifts in your life to get yourself where you were to where you are today. And yes, you probably watched what you ate and all the things, but a lot of it is mindset, and it's the belief that you can do it and that you will do it. And it's changing the patterns of like being in a broken cycle of like, I go on a diet, I restrict my calories, I'm not eating this. Then I have a cheat meal because everybody wants something that they can't eat. And then it's like, I can't do this. And then the full sabotage, the binge eating, the negative thoughts, until you're so disgusted with yourself that then you start a diet all over again. And we just stay stuck in this pattern that doesn't serve us.
You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of a hamster wheel.
Yes.
The hamsters in the little thing there, and they're going nowhere fast.
Nowhere fast.
And I remember going through my transition where I used to think of that, and I'm like, okay, that's a good thing that I can recognize that, but you know, let's put everything down on paper. Let's figure out, because I was determined not to go on another diet. So I had to look at it in a different way. So thank you so much for pointing all that out, because that is so important. You can be on any diet you want to be, but if you're not, number one, being gentle and kind to yourself, number two, you have to be totally honest.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've done the work and you've been there. And it's so true. And gentle, one of the biggest things in my practice is like, give yourself some grace. Tomorrow's a new day, no big deal, right? And that's how you start to love yourself. And then when you love yourself, then you do good for yourself. It's when we don't love ourselves that we sabotage, you know?
That is so true. And you brought up mindset, and really mindset is the key. You know, you can wake up and, for instance, and say, you know what, I'm going to have a crappy day. Well, guess what?
You are.
You are going to have a crappy day. Whereas, you know, maybe take it a step back. Maybe you're not feeling your best when you wake up. That is why I give myself, for instance, for people that have a hard time waking up, I give myself 15 to 20 minutes. Like, don't bother me. Don't talk to me. Just let me wake up. And then I'm like, okay, let's get going. Let's start this day.
Right. But what a difference it makes to say, I'm going to honor myself and give myself 15 minutes of alone time to veg in my bed, whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm setting that time aside, as opposed to feeling guilty that you laid in bed for 10 minutes. Now it's like a treat. So it's the same action, it's the same thing, but it's how you're perceiving it. And you go from self-care to guilt, or back and forth,
Yeah, and that, let's face it, the self-guilt thing, that's a hamster wheel all in of itself.
100%. 100%.
And the negativeness that comes from that, where, as you were mentioning before, when your clients get home and they say, oh, I did great all day, did my workout, did this, did that. But then
I know, I hate that, but then
I know but then really has a great significance on how we move forward, because I think we can either give up or we say, like you said, you know what, tomorrow's a new day, give yourself the grace to move forward in a positive manner. And I think too that if we look at it also as, for instance, all right, what did I learn from that? What can I do better? What can I change? And when I wrote down what I was doing and why I was doing it, I saw a pattern. Imagine that.
I was just going to talk about patterns. I love that you brought that up. Yeah. Yeah. There's always an antecedent. There's always a before. Just like if you have children and there's a behavior, something happened to trigger that child to act a certain way, right? So when we go for a certain food craving, something happened. We are feeling insignificant at work. Our coworkers made us feel a certain way. Our spouse made us feel a certain way. We're tired. We're stressed. Whatever that may be, there's always something that comes before the craving. And so you're right. When you start to identify, there are specific patterns that we can shift easily.
And I want to specifically shift a little bit and talk about what you were doing prior to becoming a holistic health coach, because as you're smiling and beaming here, I really think that's important for my viewers and listeners to understand where guests are coming from and why they do what they do, because that's where the inspiration happens.
Yeah, so it's the universe has a way of planning out your life, whether you feel, it's out of our hands for sure, right? And I was a teacher. I taught middle school, 6th grade for many years. And then I met my husband teaching, got married, got pregnant, the whole thing. And I resigned from teaching to stay home and raise my children. And the day I remember vividly, the last day I was in my classroom, it was hot, it was June. I was like 8.5 months pregnant. And I remember looking at my classroom one last time and turning off the lights and just saying, like, I don't know what's in store for me. I'm excited to be home and be a mom. And then the universe is mine, like the world is mine, right? Where is this going to take me? Never thinking that it would take me down to this path. And so my daughter was born at 3 weeks of age. I was a brand new mom. I was nursing. Everything I ate, she ate through my breast milk. And she was covered head to toe in a rash. She had blood in her stool. She was in excruciating pain. She couldn't sleep. And as a new mom, even me, like getting over just the delivery and all those things,
Sure.
Not feeling great myself, and with the baby, and then trying to figure out our way, we found out that she was just allergic to everything. So everything I ate, she ate. So now I started to really take a look at my diet and what am I eating and what am I doing, and trying to learn. Like, I didn't even know what gluten was. I didn't know what casein, what whey, like I had no idea. This was 17 years ago, before gluten was trendy, or gluten-free. And so it was a whole new world. So I just started navigating it the best I could. And what would happen is that people out of nowhere would call me. I heard that you can help me because your child, blah, blah, blah. Can you And I was talking to strangers and helping all these people, and people at the playground were like, how do you get your kid to eat lentil soup? Mine will only eat French fries, or, and like the straw that broke the camel's back was we were at Disney World, and a friend of me texted me a picture, a friend of mine, and said, my son has a rash. Can you tell me what this is? And I was just laughing, like, how do I know? I'm just a mom chasing a kid on a playground, feeding them healthy. You know what I mean? And at that point, I had my second child, and my husband was like, okay, we're kind of broke. Like, can you go back to work? Can you go back to teaching? And I was like, no, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm helping all these people. Everybody really needs the support. The health, and that was when health coaching was brand new, and people needed guidance. Like, our food system and our lifestyle has changed to the negative in such a bad space. And let me go back and say that I wasn't born in this country. I'm from Argentina. So being raised and I've lived here my whole life, but I came as a little girl, but I was always raised in a household where home cooking, things from scratch were just our life. It wasn't because of health. It was just how we ate. That's just how it was.
Mhm.
And so I then fed my children that way. And it's really very simple to eat from nature, eat healthy. But people didn't see that. And I knew that I could make a difference in their health. So that's where I went back to school and started my practice. And truth is, as a health coach, I knew exactly what to eat, what not to eat, what was good for me, what wasn't. But I was exhausted. I was craving all foods that were chocolate and salt. And I was walking the walk and doing all the right things, but yet my energy level and my health was not where it needed to be. And one day I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and we had just finished dinner. And I said to my husband, you take the kids, I'll clean up. I'm just going to put my head down for 1 second. 30 minutes later, I woke up from a nap right at dinner time, like a baby falls asleep in their high chair. And I was like, okay, I really need to figure out what is going on. Like, why can I not stay awake? And that's when I really started experimenting with like not what I should be eating, but what I should be eating, right? Not what the world was telling me, like, this is healthy, this isn't. I had to look at my body, what my bio-individualistic. And when I started to experiment with that, I was able to design food that worked for me, that gives me more energy that I know what to do with now. And that's really where I started to build my practice around cravings, because I realized that I was eating the right things, but yet I was craving all the bad stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of the backstory of this all.
So, which leads me kind of to the next comment or question, the craving aspect of it. Now, I'm obviously talking from when from the heart.
Yeah.
What I did was, so, back to the bag of chips. And then it was like everything was so salty. So then I had to balance it out.
With sweet.
Wait, like, how crazy is that? And that's why, potato chips and cookies, I love cookies. Oreo cookies, by the way. Oh, they are so good. But anyways, it's like you go from, excuse me, really learning and getting down to the nitty gritty. You figure things out, like that is still there for me. And have you come across some of your clients that are at that point where, okay, I've got this figured out. I know, for instance, at 10:30 every morning, I'm just like so hungry, I can't stand it. If I don't eat something, I'm going to scream. To like, do they have these moments where they are, this is great, figured it out, but why does it keep popping up?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question, because it is true, right? We can shift things, but it doesn't always necessarily disappear. And so one of the things I do in my practice, which I think is the main reason why people get such results, is because I do what I like to call food therapy. It's talking about, most of my session with my clients, whether it's group or private, is not about food. It's very little about food. Most people know what they should and shouldn't be eating, or what is healthier. Everyone knows kale is better than cookies, right? So it's not about the what, it's the how. So it's really peeling back the layers. It's getting to the deep roots. We do a lot of work on identity, a lot of work on self-care, a lot of work on our beliefs about ourselves. And then we start to get into as we understand that, that's a big piece that all of a sudden, as we're peeling back those layers, our cravings start to naturally disappear because we're getting to the underlying root of things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, your belief system
Mhm.
or your food therapy, what have you learned, or what is something that sticks out to you, like you felt this way over here about it, but now as you've gone through your journey and you are where you are today, what is one belief that just totally mystified you? Like, wow.
Yeah, you know what? This may sound crazy and it's like really almost therapy, but a lot of it is stemmed from childhood. Even our beliefs about ourselves and the way we eat as adults comes from childhood. And I can give you two quick examples if you'd like.
Sure, yeah.
One of my clients always diet, whole life diet, and really looked for food for comfort. It was like it was her comfort. And as we started to talk, she was like, and we peeled back layers. She said, I think I grew up feeling unloved. She knew her parents loved her, but she didn't have that internal feeling. She was one of many. She felt unloved. She said, I'm looking for food for that companionship, for that love. And when we got to that, I mean, I bumped into her just the other day. I was like, you just keep losing weight. She looks amazing. She's healthy. She's radiant. It's not even all about the weight. It's about just stepping into your best self, right? But going back to her childhood. Or another client of mine who, no matter what she did as a child, it was never good enough. If she got an A, how come not an A plus? If she cleaned her room, why didn't she clean out her closet? So she believed that she didn't deserve it, that she wasn't good enough. So every time she would lose weight, she'd put it right back on because she had that internal dialogue with herself that she doesn't deserve success, right? And peeling that back, she was like, oh my God, like, of course, tears. I know when the tears come that we've hit something, and it changed everything for her because she was able to pinpoint it. So I think what stood out the most for me was that it's the deep rooted childhood upbringing has a bigger effect on our eating patterns than we could ever imagine.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. And I was thinking back, I know a lot of what you said about the childhood, definitely for me as well. Grew up in, I have 4 older siblings, 1 younger, so 6 children. And at a time where my brother was competing, he's a national and world's figure skating gold medalist. And
Wow.
always, the rush of always my mom preparing, for instance, hot dogs and beans. Like I got to a certain age and I'm like, no way am I eating hot dogs and beans. Like those different memories pop up. And of course, hot chocolate, that's a memory from sitting in the ice skating rink for hours, just, bored out of my mind, watching my brother, blah, 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 skate around. But, that is so true what you said. A lot of that comes back from our childhood.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know your personal story and I don't want to impose on it, but even being one of 6, correct? One of 6, number 5 of 6, and
Right.
everything revolving around your brother, possibly without realizing. And as parents, we do the best we can always,
Right.
right?
Right.
But then you wonder, like, did that make you feel like, okay, well, I'm getting loved with hot cocoa. That's the way I get love. So now I'm going to look, this chocolate is going to give me love. You don't realize as a parent, you just do the best you can, but then it becomes part of our mindset as adults.
It really does. And, by the way, I love my brother,
Right.
but
And I didn't want to say anything, but your parents are probably awesome. Yeah.
that is, I brought it up and I so appreciate that. But, it just goes to show you that, when those certain things pop up, of course, they bring up an emotion or a memory, and that is attached to how we develop and how we move forward in our lives. So thank you so much for sharing that. I just want to segue over a moment.
Sure.
We are also broadcasting live through the Wisdom Audio app. So I want to welcome all of the listeners currently on. I see some familiar names. So thank you so much for being here. You know, what is ice cream? Let's talk about ice cream for a moment.
Yeah. Who doesn't love ice cream? Come on. It's
Uh,
a favorite.
That's another thing, but I think I have more of a healthy relationship with ice cream. Like if I want ice cream, I am going to have ice cream. Is there one thing for you? Like, what is your one thing? Like, I don't care what's going on. This is my thing.
Oh, food wise.
Yeah.
I definitely am an ice cream fan. I love ice cream. It doesn't make me feel so good, like instantly. Dairy and I don't get along, so I've kind of stepped away from that. But chocolate is my,
Yeah.
chocolate, any kind of chocolate, I'll take it.
I'm on I buy the non-dairy for myself, which
Yeah.
is more expensive, but I only have like
A little bit.
just like a little scoop. That's all I need. And I'm like just so happy.
And can I transition? Can I jump
Yes.
a little bit? I love that you said that, because there's one thing is, just because we're leading a healthy lifestyle does not mean that you should never eat chocolate or ice cream or potato chips, right? We live in, I always like to say, like an 80-20 or a 90-10 life, whereas 90% of the time I'm eating clean, I'm fueling my body, I'm giving my body the nutrients it needs. And then 10% of the time I'm fueling my taste buds. Like, I know that ice cream is not serving my body, but it's making me happy in the moment. And that's perfectly fine, because I have a healthy relationship with it. And you brought up that word. Having a healthy relationship with food allows you to eat everything that you love in moderation. And you don't need a whole pint of ice cream. Just a little bowl is plenty, and you're satisfied and happy. It's when our relationship is not so great with food and we're binge eating, shoving our face with the whole bag of potato chips. And then at the end, you're like, I don't even think I tasted those chips. And now I can't believe I ate that. And then the guilt comes in and the whole big cycle. Different than having a handful of chips and being fine with it, you know?
And
Yeah.
I've even, since we're talking about kind of some of my issues here.
I love it.
I own my issues. I do. Back to potato chips. About a month ago, I'll say like every month when I go, I allow myself to buy a small bag. And I was tempted to do that. And I'm like, wait a minute. I just bought that like 3 weeks ago. I got to wait another week or two. And I was okay with that. And I know that it's kind of sounds silly, but it works for me.
If it works for you, it's great. And you're setting healthy boundaries around your food. And that's it. But now I'm curious, what's your favorite chip brand? What's the chip that you love?
I love the Utz chips, the non-sodium ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Every now and then, yeah, but every now and then, like when I used to eat a bag of chips, it typically was the salt and vinegar.
Yeah, those are good. Those are definitely
so good. Anyway,
this is not a good segue for not eating cravings, as we're like drooling over chips.
I know. Do you have a moment where we can maybe perhaps invite somebody up from Wisdom?
I would love that.
For you. So Wisdom, we have time for one guest to come up on stage. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, or perhaps you want to ask Lety a question, please feel free to come up. Like I said, we have time for one guest to pop up there. Lety, as we are waiting for someone to hopefully come up on stage, which I know for me can be frightening when I used to go up on stage on these platforms. How can our viewers and listeners connect with you further?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. Social media is I feel like the best way to interact. So you could find me on Facebook. I'm at Lety Algeri 1. And on Instagram, I'm on Lety_Algeri. So those are two great places, or on my website, which is letyalgeri.com. So I tried to keep it simple, keep it all to my name, and you could find me any of those places.
That is wonderful. And thank you so much. I obviously will make sure all that information is in the show notes. What is one thing for your business that you see happening that maybe it's a huge goal for you that you have.
As growing my business.
Yes.
So I love that you asked that question, because I think it's something that as entrepreneurs, we always give a lot of thought to, right? Like, what is the big vision? Where am I going with this? And of course, for me, it's always impact driven. My daughter was born with some health challenges that was able to give us a platform and a voice to help others, right? So that's like the silver lining of this whole thing. And so for me, it's really making the biggest impact that I can and keeping it so simple so that women can actually make changes. So what that looks like for me is large stages, large speaking engagements. Really, aside from working one-on-one and in group coaching, it's being able to put on events where women can learn and be transformed in weekends and really have just such a large audience to speak to. That's my big vision.
Wow. And I have no doubt that you will definitely reach that. That is wonderful. Lety, I really so enjoyed this conversation. I think that we've only just begun the conversation. So I hope that you will definitely consider coming back again real soon.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. You know, everyone, there are those times where we have those cravings. And as I mentioned about cravings, mine happen to be potato chips and Oreo cookies. I love them. Anyways, Lent is over and I am indulging today with my second cup of coffee. And you know what? I don't feel guilty about it. My name is Janis, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Today, inspired, continue to be inspired by this amazing entrepreneur, Lety Algeri, the founder of the Craving Crusher Method. Go ahead and crush those cravings. Thank you so much, Lety.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye for now, everyone.